Welcome to Feminist Question Time. Today it's the 6th of February. Thank you so much for coming to Feminist Question Time today. It's an international feminist networking event. It's brought to you by Women's Human Rights Campaign, which is an international feminist organization promoting women's rights. We have a main focus on defending women's sex-based rights against the threats posed by gender identity ideology. You can find more information on the website womensdeclaration.com, where you will find our Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights, which has been signed by 14,556 people from 127 countries, and it's supported by 306 organizations. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to then go first to discuss with a Greek feminist to talk about the situation in Greece.
I started my work with the Women's Human Rights Campaign back in the summer of 2020. I thought that it was very important, and it is very important, for Greek women to be further informed about the situation with trans activists and how the trans movement impacts women's rights. To start from the beginning, most feminists in Greece are mostly leaning towards liberal feminism. Very few feminist groups and organizations adopt a more radical perspective, while younger women tend to reject our views concerning the porn industry and the trans movement. So last fall, I tried to connect with other radical feminists in Greece who could help me with the promotion of WHRC. I contacted the group Heretic Feminism, which is the only openly radical Facebook page in Greece. Some of their members offered to help with the translation of the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. So with their help and the help of a fellow radical feminist who's also a translator, we managed to finish the Greek translation of the Declaration, which will be available on the site of WHRC in the following weeks. I also tried to contact other feminist groups who are against sex work and are against the silencing of women. The problem is that very few women organizations are ready to collide with the dominant liberal feminist views. Most of them are very hesitant, and while the trans agenda is relatively new to the country, even radical feminists fail to acknowledge the seriousness of their demands and how women's rights can be jeopardized if we adopt a gender-neutral agenda. All in all, I think there is a long way for Greece before more women learn about the true demands of the trans movement. I hope that during the next semester, I will be able, with my team, of course, to create a Greek web page for Women's Human Rights Campaign, and maybe, along with the help of my feminist sisters here in Greece, translate more radical feminist texts. Most women here are really brainwashed from the liberal opinions concerning feminism.
Yeah. What about trans activists' attempts to silence radical feminists in Greek social media?
Yeah, that's a very serious issue as well. So as I mentioned before, the liberal feminist view is the dominant one in Greece. There are many feminist pages that support the trans movement as well as the porn industry and sex work. Their pages mostly appear on Facebook, but some of them appear on separate blogs on the internet. In the past 2 or 3 years, I'd say there's a new trend of feminist pages that gather anonymous messages of women who have experienced sexism or male violence. And while there isn't a problem with these pages, some of these testimonies also come from trans women who blame the patriarchy for their misfortunes. In these pages, if there is any gender critical comment or criticism, the admins tend to step in immediately and ban the radical feminist who dared to speak her mind. I personally was banned from such a page simply for liking one gender critical comment. And on top of that, the previous month, the radical feminist page, Heretic Feminism, was targeted by another feminist page under the title Prostitutes of Mercy, which instructed their followers to report the only radical page in Greece for hate speech. Hopefully, they did not manage to ban the page, but there is still a serious threat against profiles and pages that promote gender critical and radical views. Another page that was attacked last summer was the feminist page Purple after defending their views against sex work on their page on Facebook. A Wave Fairy followed their upload with many comments calling them swerves and radical feminists. Closing this question, I want to emphasize the similarity of such attacks against radical feminism in Greece to the ones we've seen abroad. It is noteworthy that liberal feminists and trans allies adopt the same autocratic methods of silencing, canceling, bullying, and terrorizing women with a different opinion. This is the situation, and I really hope it only gets better.
Thank you for telling us and explaining this. Yeah. Can you tell us about, you've told us there's a backlash concerning the upcoming revision of the family law in Greece. Exactly. Can you explain that situation?
Yes, of course. This is a huge issue right now and a very serious one. So since last fall, there have been serious efforts from men's groups disguised as fathers' rights groups, to change the existing family law resulting from the feminist struggles back in the 80s. The most active group among them, which is supported by celebrities in the mass media here in Greece, is the one under the name Active Dads. Active dads claim that children need to spend equal amount of time with both parents to be happy, even after a divorce, and for that reason, they promote a new bill that will pass from the parliament the following season. This law will amend the existing family law by inserting the practice of a forced joint custody for all parents who have had a divorce or a breakup, which poses many problems for divorced mothers. So, first of all, you might ask, who are active dads and what are their arguments? Active dads are a group of high salaried men, some of whom are lawyers, who are divorced and wish to have the custody of their children. They use clever arguments to convince the public in favor of their campaign. They claim that children who live with one of their parents suffer from the parental alienation syndrome. The theory of parental alienation syndrome was introduced back in the 80s by Richard Gardner, trying to explain why some children of divorced parents did not maintain good relations with the parent they did not live with. Gardner claimed that children were manipulated by the parent who had their custody to not maintain any contact with the visiting parent. We have to note that there were many critiques concerning the validity of Gardner's research and whether or not such cases constitute a syndrome. Another critique is that parental alienation syndrome may be used by abusers to ignore allegations of domestic and sexual abuse by redirecting the attention from the actual abuser, who is in most cases the divorced father, to the victim, who's usually the mother. So moving back to the group of active dads, another argument they use is that forced joint custody will further enhance equality between men and women by enabling women to work more hours and find full-time jobs. What they fail to acknowledge is the impact such legislation could have on abused women and their children. Another problem is that such a bill could further pauperize single mothers who depend on the alimony of their ex-husband to raise their children, since the upcoming bill of forced joint custody can impact the sum of the alimony divorced mothers receive. So the reason why the Greek feminist movement is against this law is because we know how such a practice could harm women and children who experience domestic violence and will be forced to continue living with their abuser. At this point, I have to add that there are no family courts in Greece responsible for the fast litigation of cases of domestic violence against women. Such cases usually take years to publish a final court decision, while women who cannot afford a lawyer might be discouraged from filing a complaint against their abuser. On top of that, joint custody already exists as a concept in the Greek law, but it requires both parties to be consensual about it, and it cannot be forcefully adopted. Personally, I am happy to tell you that the feminist movement in Greece has responded massively against this law, but it will be very hard to cancel this bill since active dads maintain connections with political parties and the mass media. Hopefully, I will have good news to share with WHRC if the bill is cancelled in the following months.
Thank you so much. It's so great to hear your articulate explanation of what's going on, and it's as also worrying. So for the final question, we just have 3 minutes. And so if there is extra that you could perhaps, you can put in the chat afterwards if there is more. But the question is this.
Okay.
Could you tell us about the violence against women and the highlighting of this issue in Greece, the Greek Me Too movement?
Yes. So I wanted to close today's presentation concerning the situation in Greece with really fresh news. About 2 weeks ago, the Olympic champion of sailing, Sofia Bekatoru, accused the vice president of the Greek Sailing Federation of raping her 20 years ago while she was preparing to participate in the Olympics. She gave a detailed interview testifying that she lived in fear of filing an accusation against a rapist when she was younger, since her parents would remove her from the sport and she would have missed the Olympics and all her previous effort would have been in vain. Her testimony sparked a wave of Olympic champions and athletes sharing their experiences of sexual abuse in their work environment. Their confessions spread in the performing arts in Greece as multiple actresses are filing accusations against big actors and directors of the Greek theater. Many charges target university professors as well as famous journalists in the country. Most importantly, the whole country is talking about violence against women and sexual harassment in the workplace, which is very positive, as Greece experiences a similar movement to the American Me Too. On the downside, there are many misogynistic views spreading as well, questioning the truth behind those allegations, and they're trying to present the victims as irresponsible young women who initiated their abuse. In addition, many liberal feminists are trying to redirect the public opinion to the victims who aren't women by saying that also gay and straight men have been victims of sexual abuse or mobbing in the workplace. Although it is true that some men have been victims of workplace violence, this approach is dangerous because it erases the fact that women are in most cases victims of sexual harassment in the workplace, and that even when men suffer from the same problem, the perpetrator is almost always male. Closing my presentation, I'd like to say that even though there are many issues concerning the battle against male violence against women, I am optimistic, and I see that a number of organizations such as the public domain and universities adopt measures to counteract sexual harassment and possibly assist women who wish to file complaints in the future.